right, everybody. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with both of my co-hosts, Darian Smith and Jimmy Marion, and we've got an exciting football episode for you all. But before we get started, if you are not subscribed to the Blazer Victory Podcast YouTube channel, do us a favor right now. Go subscribe. I think we're at 370, so we're just 130 short of that next goal to get to 500 subscribers. Go click the link below. At Blazer Pod is the YouTube channel link. And for you guys that listen audio only, do us a solid. Click the link in the audio description and go ahead and subscribe to the Blazer Victory Podcast YouTube channel. And this episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast, as always, is brought to you by Cahaba Brewing Company. And if you guys missed the last episode that we dropped last Friday, Saturday afternoon, Cahaba Brewing Company had a celebration in the tap room of their 13th anniversary. So congrats again to Cahaba Brewing Company for celebrating 13 years, and cheers to 13 more years. And whether it's the Cahaba Blonde, Cahaba Blood Orange Blonde, Oka Uba IPA, solid beers. And if you don't like beers, go to the tap room. They'll make you a mixed drink. Solid mixed drinks as well. But if you have not already, go to the tap room and go to cahababrewingcompany.com to see what all events and everything that's going on in the tap room. And February 11th, that will be a Tuesday night. Next Blazer Victory Podcast watch party at Cahaba Brewing Company as the UAB Blazers travel to East Carolina to take on the Pirates in some hoops action. But again, that is February 11th, so make that room on your calendar today. But guys, it's been a while since we've talked UAB football, and I'll go ahead and share my screen for those at YouTube. Again, at BlazerPod on YouTube. And shout out UABsports.com. Let's see. 21 players were announced from the transfer portal to have signed with UAB. And guys, we're not going to spend 5 to 10 minutes on each of the 21 signees. That will be for a later date, maybe even on the Patreon, patreon.com/blazerpod. But we do want to take this episode to go through these 21 guys really quickly, and then kind of talk in general what this means for the current UAB roster and what the staff might be going towards for the future as we approach the spring football season in a couple months for spring football. We're going to go alphabetical order. First, Josh Backa, safety from Kent State. Jimmy, do you have any thoughts on number one, while we signed Josh Backa, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, for a 6'1", 205 safety from Kent State?
I was looking at this and thinking about the irony. I literally before this call was just on the phone with somebody from Ontario, and I'm looking here, and he's originally from Ontario, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I remember when this commitment came in. Saw it come across the phone, and I was pretty impressed. I think at that point, like, we hadn't had a lot of public commitments. We were aware of some visits coming in, so he was one of the first ones that came through that was a clear indicator as we talked through some of the other guys in this class about the emphasis on getting guys that had production at their prior stops. There was a relationship with, I think his name's CJ Cox, secondary coach UAB, who was coaching at Kent State prior. So there was that, connect the dots in the recruiting world. We talk about that a lot. There was that relationship, I think, that certainly helped. This guy, I think Josh was committed to Arkansas State and even signed with Arkansas State. And then we know signings mean little until you get these, releases that confirm that the person has enrolled and is on campus. But yeah, I think it's a really exciting get. As you can see here, his production, he increased from 9 to 12 games in 3 years and had a really incredible year this past year for Kent State. And so when you think about that safety room, like for me, you've got some guys that maybe we'll talk about later, like a Sir Rob Bryant that's returning that had a lot of production at UAB. But I view this signing in particular as a ceiling of a guy that could be a starter, who's got 2 years of eligibility. They list him as a senior here, so maybe he's only got 1 year, but either 1 year or 2 years of eligibility. But I think that his ceiling is someone that could come in right away and compete for a starting spot. Could be a major playmaker for UAB in that secondary.
Right. And hey, this next guy, wide receiver on the other side of the ball, Caleb Brown, Darian. Let's talk about this guy. Now, some people might be hesitant that it's an Iowa wide receiver. They don't throw the ball ever. Or if they do, it's, it's minimal. But Darian, what are your thoughts on Caleb Brown coming to UAB? And can he be an impact guy right away?
Yeah, I think Caleb can. I know this is one of the guys we actually were able to touch on because if not, he was one of the first guys committed here. So we talked about him. So I'm not going to spend too much time on him. I think that obviously he was at Ohio State. He obviously would have physical tools, the speed, the quickness. And then if you're a Caleb Brown, you look at guys like Milliner, you look at Shanks, in which he's bigger, right? He's 5'2", 200, he's experienced. But if you look at what UAB has been able to do with these guys, that they put at the receiver position, they take advantage of their speed. And you say, hey, you got Cam Shanks, you got Amari Thomas, they live. We can do you. And you got physical tools.
I think Darian's going through internet.
I'm in the Matrix. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. You are out of the Matrix now.
Yeah, it's another day that I don't have my microphone. I'm using and that's going in and out. But yeah, I think he's a guy that has the tools. And you look at if I'm him, I'm looking at what Cam Shanks, I look at what Amari Thomas did. I see that void there, and I believe that I have on par or better physical skills. I'm gonna plug me in and help my stock rise, and I can possibly go to the NFL or go in the portal myself. But I think this is a really good move for him and for us.
Yeah, well said. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about the guys coming back or deciding to come back with this UAB 2025 team, but also the wide receiver position. Huge that Corey Milliner is coming back. As we saw late last season, he produced good numbers, especially Memphis game, Charlotte game, those last stretch of games for the 2024 season. So that was big in the wide receiver room to bring Corey Milliner back. Ryder Burton, he's played a couple of different places. A quarterback, 6'2", 200, redshirt sophomore. Looks like BYU and West Virginia. No stats from BYU and West Virginia. Both of those seasons he did not play. But in addition to the quarterback room, it is, we'll see what's to come out of that room. But next guy, Jalen Cheek, defensive back, 6'2", 200. Transfer from Boston College, and I know Jimmy has some thoughts on what production Jalen Cheek brings into this UAB secondary.
Yeah, just to kind of continue that trend that we'll talk about quite often today is that you've got guys with experience that are seasoned, that are vets, if you will, and that have production. So you have someone that this last year, that being Jalen Cheek at Boston College, had for him maybe a little bit of a down year, 6 tackles and a pick, still played in 10 games. But you look at that year prior in 2023 at 26 tackles, played in 9 games, and in 2022 he had some statistics as well. But offers ain't everything. But one thing I point out about this guy is that in the transfer portal, he did have some competitive offers, Memphis, notably, Temple, and WKU as well, which is a successful G5 program. So UAB and this new defensive staff had to go out and compete with some other programs, and were able to bring Jalen Cheek in. We'll likely talk about a teammate of his that will be joining the Blazers as well. But I thought this was a good pickup for that secondary that's losing some key pieces to bring in, again, not just a guy who has experience, but has been productive. And in this example, was productive at a Power 4 school in a Power 4 conference.
You well said. Hey, speaking of Power 4 experience, in the secondary, Tamarian Crumpley, a defensive back, 6'1", 195 pounds, redshirt senior, coming in from Pittsburgh. Just this last year, played in 11 games, 6 tackles, and 1 pick. That kind of says what Jimmy just mentioned. You know, you're bringing in a guy that has experience. You know, look at the last year before 2024, 2023. Played in all 12 games, but he's played in the Power 4, so that is really good experience for this UAB secondary, and they need it this upcoming year.
Hey, John, on that note, before we hop off him, I want to give people an example real quick. Like when you're looking at some of these guys, it's hit or miss. You don't know what's going to happen. But think about a guy like Sarah Bryant, who came from Georgia Tech in the ACC. The year prior to coming to UAB, played in 11 games. He had 7 tackles. He was primarily on special teams. You look at a guy like Tamarian Crumpley here, who likely was playing more special teams than, in the secondary. I don't know that, but just making an assumption here. Sarah Bryant came in this past year at UAB, played in 12 games, had 60 tackles, 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hurries, and a fumble recovery. You've got guys, somebody might be looking at this and saying, okay, we had 3 tackles in 12 games. Who cares? Well, I would argue that if this is someone that they think has the right skill set, he's 6'1", he's got length, who again is coming from like a ACC school, like who knows? He could be the next Sarah Bryant as it relates to your production elevating from that power conference school coming down to play at a G5 opportunity.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at his size and length, and look at Jalen Cheeks. And you can see that there's a clear profile that they're trying to kind of align up with over 6 foot DBs with length, and on the Venn diagram, some level of production. And then you get those guys in. Since they're announced, and I'm gonna get clarity on this, since the team announced them, I'm guessing these guys will be here now, like they're on campus. So if you get those guys in versus those guys we took the gamble on, the cornerbacks it was shaky. Now you got them in, you get them in the system. You got the type of guys you want. You know the type of talent that they have. You think that you can really do something after losing Dempsey and Kelvin Hill. We lost a couple of guys in that defensive backfield, and you think you can replace it with experience and profile fit.
Well said. Hey, this next guy, linebacker Eli Ennis, 6'2", 205 out of Nichols. The 3 years at Nichols tallied over 200 tackles, 22.5 TFLs, and 5.5 sacks. Doesn't this remind you a little bit of when we got Noah Wilder, from Gardner Webb? I mean, if he can live up to the Noah Wilder hype, this guy's going to be good. And he's got the stats to back it up. And I know Nichols, but hey, I don't care where you play. If you can play well and put up the numbers that Ennis has, hey, he could be a solid pickup for this linebacking core for UAB.
Yeah. And I think it's – oh, go ahead, Jimmy.
I was going to say I'm really excited about this pickup. You hear the staff talk about getting guys in that are the right fit. You don't go to any school, in my opinion, and play as a true freshman as much as he did if you didn't have a good football IQ. You didn't understand like assignment football. You're able to do the intangibles and the things that the coaching staff is asking of you. It's either that or you're just so supremely talented that they can't not put you on the field, in my opinion. And you look at his physical traits, at 205, he's likely going to have to put on some weight potentially. We'll see. But the fact that he played and produced at that level, and he's in Alabama, like that's what gets me excited. You have a guy from Hatchie, Alabama. He's coming back to the state of Alabama. He's produced in, to your point, John, 3 years in a row. Yeah, it's a lower competition, but I get excited about the guy coming here and just how he might fit into that new scheme by new UAB defensive coordinator Steve Russ. Gets me excited.
Yes. And I know, guys, we haven't talked a lot about the coaches, but we are going to save that for another episode. I'm sorry.
And he did have a Kansas offer, by the way. Kansas, UAB, Western Michigan, Jack State. So he, again, UAB defensive staff, new staff, went out, competed, and won this guy.
So I think it's important to talk about him in tandem with Calvin Pritchard. Pritchard is another linebacker that we have. And I say that is because look at their size, look at their experience, right? Look at their size and experience. Look at how much production that they both have, right? Mm-hmm. I know Calvin Pritchard was hurt. He got hurt this past year. That's why you got the 4 again. He redshirted. But you look at those years prior at Idaho State, and you see the numbers you put up. It's almost like the same size. He was listed as a linebacker. He's like a linebacker, safety hybrid. They got him at safety here. They had him at linebacker earlier. Him and Eli Ennis essentially was the same size. Mm-hmm. But one thing they can do is they produce. They are very smart. Jimmy talked about IQ, and when I was really looking at this past, I saw the Ravens and Bills game. The Bills was not the better team, but the Bills had the highest floor. They didn't make those mistakes. The drop balls, the turnovers, and everything. We have players I feel like that are dependable, right? And guys like Eli Ennis and Calvin Pritchard, they might be a little undersized, but they're productive, right? And they prove that they can do it. They prove that they play with a very high IQ. And I think I'm very excited about these pickups. You can put weight and you can put strength on. But I think if you put those guys in the right positions, they're going to reward you. And your floor goes from here to here. I don't care about the ceiling anymore. After looking at those playoffs games, we'll get to the ceiling once we can be the same team with an identity game after game. And to me, those pickups, they signify that because they can tackle, they can cover. Look at everything they do. Pass breakups, interceptions, sure tackling. I don't care about knocking them out. Just get them on the ground. Be in the right spot. And I trust when I look at Steve Russ's profile, I'm like, I think that's what we're going for.
Well said. Hey, we don't care about the ceilings. As a Lil Wayne, no ceilings. Y'all remember that? Jimmy, you remember that mixtape?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, no ceilings, baby. Next guy who UAB got in a trade for Dallas Payne, traded FIU UAB. Antonio Ferguson, tight end, 6'3", 225, redshirt sophomore. And we talked about him. I can't remember if it was on our free show, Jimmy, but it might have been a Patreon discussing him and his game. But hey, UAB needs tight ends, and we're going to talk another. I think another one later here. Yeah. But yeah, Antonio Ferguson, 6'3", 225, out of FIU. Let's see. We talked. But Perry Fisher, defensive back, 6'3", 200. Maryland, again, like Darian alluded to earlier, 6'3", 200. You got that profile that the staff seems to go for when they in regards to the secondary. Resher Jr. But any thoughts on guys? Perry Fisher, any thoughts?
Yeah, I want to say real quick, Perry Fisher is a guy that I think came onto the scene year before last in the bowl game against Auburn. Don't know what bowl game it was, but you can go online. I think it's on YouTube, see some of his highlights. And then he came out this past year and was starting. Now, I sent the guys here, some articles of some fan blogs and stuff that, said that they had a maligned secondary, and Perry Fisher, they were kind of contributing some of the issues to him. But I didn't watch any Maryland football. Who knows the validity, the credibility of the fan blogs. And sometimes when you suck, you just want to point your finger at somebody and say, well, that's the reason why. So who knows? But what I can tell you is, man, he's 6'3". You pointed out that length, like Darian talked about earlier. Look at the trends and what they're going for in that secondary. And again, he's a guy that was starting in a power conference. He wasn't somebody that was even just playing on special teams. Like this past year, he was starting. And that means that he went against a lot of really good receiver rooms and gained a lot of experience. And so don't know his reasons for wanting to take a step down. But coming to UAB, you got to think that this developmental staff is excited, and this new defensive staff is excited to unlock what he was able to do in that bowl game against Auburn, because he showed a ceiling there. And if they can get that consistently, then they've got a gem and they've got a starter in the making.
Yeah, and I've heard already that he's just, when on this visit here, he's just a way-like guy, right? Like his attitude. That's the thing that got me most excited. He was pointed out for his attitude and how he carries himself as a professional, right? So, and that how excited he and how ready he is to get to work, and it made me excited for him that he's all about the work and putting the work in, and we need guys like that, just mature guys. Again, no ceilings. Lil Wayne mixtape over here. We're worried about the floor. We're worried about consistency here. That's what we need.
Definitely. Well, talking about the linebacker room too. I mean, Devin Hightower, linebacker, 6'1", 230, out of FCS, Rhode Island. Played in 14 games this past season, 92 tackles, 10 TFLs. I mean, they kind of see what they're wanting to go with, and I know there's a lot of FCS ranks, but hey, again, production, numbers, and I think the staff just wants guys that want to be at UAB and want to compete at the FBS level and in a hard conference as the AAC. But any other thoughts with Hightower, guys?
Only thought is, like, you see, he's maybe a little bit of an outlier because he's got the 230 pounds on him already. So, but also you look at this guy too, and like, unlike Pitcher and then the other guy we talked about, this guy did start off at 2 power conference schools. I think it was what was it, Michigan State and Cincinnati. Yeah. So I mean, he's someone that likely was highly recruited coming out of high school, start out at the Power 4 level, suffered an injury, which I think they mentioned here, and probably slowed him down in 23, but just came out of everything that he was building up for those 3-4 years, like unleashed in 2024. If he's healthy, and again, you get 92 tackles, don't really care where you are and the level of production you had, that's exciting to bring in at that linebacker group. So, yeah,
and I'm looking at him. It's a guy that probably, if I'm looking at it, he'll probably have another year, because 2020 you got COVID, and 2021 is 4 games played. You can take a red shirt. 2022, if it's season ended, you can take a medical. So 23 and 24, I mean, he should be labeled as a junior. Honestly, he should have 2 more years because of how, if I'm looking at that right, that should be lined up. But he is, like Jimmy said, I'm excited about him. 230 pounds. He's a true middle linebacker. Now you look at the profile of that linebacker room. We have Tyler McNichols, who had a good freshman season coming back. And we have the untapped potential of Eddie Tucson coming back. And all of a sudden, you bring in these 3 guys. All of a sudden, it seems like we might have a little bit more depth, especially with Jax Van Dep, Van Zant, and guys like that coming back. We might have a little more depth with space to go for scholarships. We might have a little more depth than we had last year. If we had one of those linebackers, Michael Moore, anybody go down, we were hurt. But now it seems like we have some dependable guys, and I think Eddie Tucson will floor. He's seen his profile fits what Steve Bruce wants to do. So I want to just bring the full picture with the guys that we have now. And, Tyler McNichols was a safety linebacker guy in college. He was a guy that could cover. So coming in, he was a guy that we were trying to kind of tweener. But it seems like Steve Russ does well with those type of guys, because it seems like we want our linebackers to multiple things. We want versatility. and that is Tyler McNichols' game was versatility. But you look at Calvin Pritchard and you look at all the other guys, the Eli Ennis's, and it seems like we have a profile going on. And it seems like we want guys to run fast and hit and tackle. That's what we want. And then they'll be able to cover tight ends and stuff like that as well. Do multiple things and have some size on them. They don't have to be the biggest guy.
Yes, fundamentals. Speaking of, Dasheen Jackson, safety 6'2", 210, transfer from Alabama State. It's, with Ron Lewis coming on the defensive staff, we have to think that, he played a role in Dasheen Jackson deciding to commit to UAB and play here. But you guys look at YouTube, the stats. 10 games played last year, 29 tackles, 8.5 TFLs, and played at Troy. I don't know what happened there. Just says one game played at Troy the previous year, and then community college. But hey, the stats don't lie. And if Ron Lewis wants to bring him over, I think that's saying that, he thinks Dasheen Jackson can play in the AAC. What do you guys think?
Hey, I want to say this. 2023 at Troy, Sumrall would have been there. If you're recruited as a defensive player under a Sumrall staff, that's something I recognize right there. Troy's been known.
Sumrall likes to tweet.
Sumrall's been busy. We need to do another show just about just share the screen with the tweets and talk about that. That'll give us probably like 1,000 views. But I take notice of that he was recruited by that Troy staff because they were they had a good eye for talent on the defensive side of the ball. And at Hutchinson, they have his stats here, but that Hutchinson community college team is a powerhouse. And I think they won a lot of games at Hutchinson. Columbus, Georgia native. So he's got, that's a good pipeline, Columbus, Georgia. And there's at least a player or two that I think he's got some familiarity with that probably helped in the recruiting process as well. But yeah, I think he's going to be somebody that you can move around in that secondary heavy hitter. Like we brought an Adrian Maddox a year prior from Alabama State. So hopefully he's able to do some of the things that Adrian Maddox was able to do. But at the end of the day, I think this is a really solid pickup by the UAB defensive staff.
Yeah, you look 6'2", again, 6'2", 210. Look at what we're doing lengthwise. I'm so glad Jimmy mentioned Hutchinson Community College. That's the angle I was going to go with. I played at Colin Community College. I know the level of talent that's at community college. If you're able to put up stats like that at Hutchinson, who is one of the teams that we would also always constantly hear about when I played, I know that he's a player. If you do that in JUCO, trust me, a lot of JUCO players are better than D1 players. I was there. I know. I've seen it. And then just to see him at Alabama State and what he did, and also his commitment picture. Say sometimes you need guys with that energy. He had a full grill in his mouth, man. You need that energy on each team. I like watching the that Florida team that had Tebow. You need the Tebows. I don't want to. No, I'm not going to bring up Aaron Hernandez, but the other guys they had, on that team.
Was that the Chucky dolls? Didn't that make popular like with the Florida thing, or was that before
I'm not really sure with the Chucky dolls, but I just remember that team had the perfect balance of, they had, but you need that. So when I saw the group, I was like, okay, we're so back. We got the energy, he's hitting people. I like the music in there. I'm like, yeah, we need guys like that on the team. And if you can get guys like that can channel that energy on the team, I can't really explain it, but you need a good balance on your team. You need both sides. So I think he's a hard hitter. He's proven, and I like what he did at Hutchinson. I don't know what happened at Troy. Like you said, it seemed like something must have happened there. But every stop he's been in besides Troy, he's been productive. And so I'm excited about what we've done in the defensive backfield. So you bring back Sarai Bryant, you bring back AJ Brown as a safety. We lose Adrian Maddox and we lose Chris Bracey, but you bring in Dasheen Jackson and we got Josh Baca back there who's very productive. All of a sudden, you kind of cooking. You got guys like Calvin Pritchard that play linebacker safety. I think we got something.
I'm trying to figure out if I can pull off a grill.
John, I just
I'm gonna text Elizabeth real quick.
No.
and ask what she thinks about that.
Hey,
Judd,
you two, let us know. Let us
Judd,
know, you two. Could I
you're,
pull off a grill? And we
Judd,
should get one for this podcast.
Judd, we stay in Morris/Kimberly, Alabama. You have like 2 kids, a wife, nice house. Like I don't think
I've got
it
chickens
works.
in the backyard. Yeah, that's probably not for me.
It don't hit the same, man. It just don't. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I might need to get a cowboy hat though. Try to do that.
Pipe pants, belt buckles. I can see that.
Hey, this running back from UTEP though, Javon Jackson. Hey, we needed it. You know, with BB losing BB, I know it's not official, but probably losing the running backs coach too. Hey, Jimmy, what is your first impression? I know we were all excited when we saw the announcement, but what are UAB fans gonna expect from Javon Jackson, 5'8", 205? Again, a 205. That's a good number. But Javon Jackson out of UTEP.
Well, you go across this whole theme of production and experience. So he's someone that's played. He's had multiple stops. You look at his last year at Austin Peay, over 1,300 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, and he was able to land at UTEP. I think he followed his coach there. I think Austin Peay maybe had a coach leave to go to UTEP. I know he came from some school around there. Anyways, but he went to UTEP, and he had a pretty good year for them. He led his team in rushing, as you can see here. But what stands out to me is a guy that I think that this staff's going to be able to utilize versatility, catching the ball out of the backfield as well. So he had a little bit of that. He had 16 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns this past year for UTEP receiving. And at Austin Peay at 11 grabs for 78 yards and a touchdown. So he's somebody that you're going to be able to move around and utilize, not just on the ground between the tackles, but he's somebody that's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. We like to do, some of those dump off passes and whatnot. So I can see him fitting in really nicely. And, this guy has, we love Solomon BB. We love Jacobs. We've got a guy in Goodwin. We're not sure he's still on the roster health-wise, whether he'll be back around and what his production will be like. But I think, to your point, John, this was much needed. And it's just so easy to kind of envision how he's going to fit into this Alex Mortensen offense. And I think he's going to have, we talk about ceilings and floors, I think he's going to have a hell of a year in this UAB offense, honestly.
Yeah, I think looking at his size, a lot of times people want to probably compare him to Skull. But when I watched his tape, he runs a lot more like Levy. It's a lot more tougher. Like he's a lot more compact, and he has quickness to him, but he's not very flashy at like how Skull was. Skull was like a playmaker, quick type, and I know this more of a Patreon type of. But I wanted people to know what the breakdown. I know a lot of times people look at 5'8", 205. He's going to run around. He can catch the ball. He's versatile, but his style is kind of north-south, right? He can head down and he can break tackles. So I'm excited about him. I don't think he's a ceiling guy. I think he's another floor raiser type of guy. Just another consistent back that can do everything we need. And I'm not worried about those groundbreaking, can you get me 75 yards? Hey, give me 7 yards on a good carry, hit the hole you're supposed to hit, and keep us on track. And I think he's that type of guy. Along with the backs that we have, I can see what we're aiming for.
And guys, should I go kind of rapid fire? This has been kind of longer than I thought for these next few. But stop me if y'all want to say anything. AJ Johnson coming in wide receiver position, 6'3", 195, transfer from East Tennessee State University. The stats are there, pretty good stats. He was at Gardner-Webb before. I think Darian mentioned lag earlier.
But on AJ Johnson, just look at his size real quick. You got the size, you got the production. If you look at his highlight tape, he has some really, really really nice catches at ETSU. So I don't want to undersell this one. I think he's going to be really good in the system.
Was that the one that Johnson, was he kind of reminded y'all of T-Palm?
Yes.
Yeah, you just look at his yards, 16.5 yards per catch, 14.2 the year prior. He's just a big catch, highlight catch guy, great size. I don't know. Darian's definitely watched more film than me, so I don't know if he's an inside, outside guy, true outside, but he's someone that can make big plays, and that's going to be a much. I think that we'll talk about McCray here in a second. All the respect to McCray too, but I'm pretty pumped about AJ Johnson. I think that one time, glad Darian said let's not let this one slide on the radar, because I can just I could sneaky see AJ Johnson coming in and having a pretty dang good season for UAB this upcoming year.
I agree.
Fingers crossed. Elijah Lag, tight end, 6'4", 240, out of Copia.
Oh, don't disrespect.
Get that right.
That's where I went
to.
That is the school out. That is Copia Lincoln Community College.
Never heard of it. Where is it?
It is in West Mississippi. It's like 13 minutes away from my home where I stay. Elijah Lag he's a well put together tight end, and the stats they're not eye popping, but I know what it means. He had multiple offers, he had multiple visits, he has the size, he has the head on his shoulders. So I'm excited. And that's the thing.
Does he eat glass for breakfast?
He eats glass for breakfast. He's a fire breather. He pulls tires. He kisses babies. He does it all. So I think that that's a good pickup.
Yeah, big pickup.
Evan McCray, wide receiver, 6'1", 190, out of Wingate. Last season had 3 100-yard games, 7 TDs. 2024 season. Anything out of or from McCray?
No, love the production. I think he's going to slot in. I don't know what role he's going to play, but I think that it's easy to see, again, in this Alex Mortensen offense, that he's going to get some targets. And he's been, back-to-back years, he's been healthy, 11 games played. His stats are pretty consistent, but he upped those touchdowns this past year. So hopefully we can see him continue that trend at UAB.
Him and AJ Johnson, 3 100-yard games, both similar stats. So we can do something with these receivers with Corey Milliner and then guys like Joshua Jackson off a red shirt. I'm excited to see. We brought BJ Hawkins back. I forgot about that, and he's a good player in the slot. So I think we got something that we're cooking with.
And that was the final offensive player out of these 21 signees from the portal. Hey, I know this guy, Amori Morrison, out of ODU, 6'4", 260. Whew. And out of these offers that he had, and what was the school that he was at? He was gonna go to. No, it was Iowa State, right? He had an offer from Iowa State, and when we saw he was gonna go on visit to Iowa State, I think I said in the group text, I was like, all right, well, he's gone. But huge pickup for this defensive staff. But Darian, what do we like about Amori Morrison film wise out of ODU?
Look at the size, right? Already, you look at the size, you look at the experience, you look at the production. You look that he did it for a comp team in CUSA. So it's a team that plays teams that are comp to the teams that we would play in the AAC. Some of the teams are, and he was productive against them. Look, his first year here, she is CUSA all freshman team. That's when we were still part of the CUSA. So I like his size. I like his production. I like his experience. Right, experience all 3 or 4 years that he's played, and that's something that we desperately needed. And I like the fact that he's more of a physical end, right? He can actually mix it up. I think he can not only just for pass purposes, like getting to the quarterback, but for the run game. Again, I'm looking for consistency. I'm looking for a high floor. I'm looking for guys that won't make a sack and then the next play go into the wrong gap, get pushed down, and next thing you know, it's 60 yards for a touchdown. What's the point of the sack? I love consistency. Please give me that guy. We got that in Morrison, and I think that was a huge pickup for us.
This one surprised me the most. John mentioned it coming off an Iowa State visit. He OV'd to Memphis earlier in the month as well. And again, I don't think they've made it public, the hire for the defensive line for UAB. I know they're excited about it, Don't know how much that played into Amori Morrison's recruitment, but undeniably just solid, really great pickup by this UAB defensive staff. Like, if you're looking for, out of everybody name on this list, and you're like, okay, well, I see good stats, but are they people in the Patreon chat were talking about like what type of players these guys are and who we beating out? FAU, Georgia Tech, Memphis, North Texas, Western Kentucky, Western Michigan, Iowa State. Like, this guy had big time offers and went on big time visits and wants to be a Blazer. Look at the true freshman stats. He was a member of the Conference USA All Freshman team again, 32 tackles, 5 TFLs, and 3.5 sacks as a true freshman, like in the Sun Belt, which is a competitive conference. The only reason why he's got another year left, he had that season-ending injury in 2022. But this is like, on paper, the gem of the class, in my opinion.
I agree. Moving on, also staying on the defensive line, Josiah Peterson, 6'4", 280, redshirt sophomore, transfer from Rutgers. Only played in a game last season. Anything on Josiah Peterson, guys, other than the size and, I mean, the P4?
Well, I'll say this: you're not going to be able to bring in 3, 4, 5 Amori Morrisons for a variety of different reasons, but you have to mix and blend in person. And you can go out there after you get some of these guys that have the production and look for guys that are at another level that may have not played. And again, that's not uncommon. It is uncommon what Amori Morrison did as a true freshman in his league. It is common to go into a school in redshirt and play in a game in your first 2 years as you're getting used to that competition. And so I think that my thoughts on this guy right here is that it's a good blend of bringing some guys in that, hell, is going to compete for a starting position from day one, but is got several years of experience left and may benefit, as we talked about, like a Sir Rob Bryant earlier in this episode, that may have more opportunities here to get that true playing experience.
Yeah, he's a guy that I would just want to mention his pedigree. He had a lot of good offers coming out of high school. A lot of went on big time visits, from the Penn States to the Syracuse, really in that Northeast region where he's from, the New Jersey area. So he was a big time recruit coming out of high school. So yes, I will take, if you get the guys that you want, you take a shot with guys like, he's only a sophomore, right? And he's hungry. So you say, I'll get you in my system, and let's see if we can tap into that potential that you were first recruited for, when everybody was after you. We still want you. We want to see if you can get back to that level.
Well said. And next, Calvin Pitcher, safety, 6'1", 200. I think we talked about Pitcher is a little earlier. Jamichael Rogers, defensive end from Miles College. So, a local kid, from Bessemer, Alabama. All conference at Miles. Guys, about 6'2", 250. So fits that size. What did y'all see? And Darian, what did you see out of his film from Miles?
If we're talking about floor and ceilings, if we're talking about the ceilings guy, this is a ceilings guy here. I think that, he was very productive at Miles, but he flashes, right? It was like Amori Robinson. We're talking about like the consistency, 6'4", 260 or whatever it was, like big, like every down type of guy. Jamichael Rogers is a guy that may, all of a sudden you look up, it's a sack, 8-yard loss. Jamichael Rogers, probably forced fumble, turnover type of guy that can get. He is I love pickups like this, because if you use them in the right way, I don't know how he is as an every down guy. He's gonna prove that. But on third downs, especially if we got 3rd and 7, I'm gonna be upset if we don't have him on the field, because that's what he showed. That was his bread and butter ability. So it's not all about sacks. It's about quarterback pressures and stuff like that. He has, look at the tackle for losses as well. Of course, people say it's Miles. If you do that at any level of football, I need y'all to understand that guys compete in football, right? If you do this at any level of football, you are a player. I respect you. We have him on our team. He's productive, and I think he represents our ceiling. He is a guy that I feel like if he does hit, if he can get that consistent pressure, which I feel like we did not have, and we haven't had on this team since the Dilfer since the Dilfer era. Why am I struggling with that? But anyway,
Hey,
since Dilfer
yeah.
has
Hey,
been
hey,
here,
what does Cedric Buchanan always say? You got to get to that quarterback,
you
and
got to get
put some pressure
get to the
on.
quarterback, and we got the guy that potentially, I think, if you put him in the game, I don't think we've had a guy like that potentially like every down since maybe like a Alex Wright, maybe,
Think about Alex Wright, Jordan Smith, guys like that.
Yeah. We haven't had that consistently. So if we can have a guy that can do that, even if it's just third downs, it does a world of difference for us.
Nakia Eason, throw out another name. Liked him his senior year.
What's the safety that we put down at defensive end, and he was just like it was Kyle. He was just like, I can't even.
Harold,
Kyle
Harold.
Yeah, Kyle Harold. Yeah. So if we
Yes.
can just have guys like that, and I think he has a higher ceiling than that because he's 6'2", 250, right?
Right.
So,
All right. Just a couple left out of these 21. Pierre Royster, DB 6'2", 200 out of St. Francis. Any thoughts on that, Royster?
He's everything we talked about earlier. Like, he fits that profile that we talked about earlier: experience, production, and he's in that secondary. I couldn't be more impressed with what C.J. Cox, Steve Russ, Ryan Lewis did with this UAB secondary. So I think he's our last secondary guy. Like, just huge shout out to them for having a plan, and that is obvious to us what they're trying to do as it relates to just production and experience, and really succeeding and excelling in doing that. Given all we're not going to talk about all the disadvantages of playing at UAB football, because we three believe there's a lot of advantages of playing at UAB football, and they were able to take those selling points and go out and get right fit guys. And I can't wait to see how they slot in and how they compete with each other in spring practice, and how that room begins to unfold.
Another DB that's 6'2".
Mm-hmm.
Another tall, lengthy. It's so clear what we're going for and what we believe in. And 6'2", 200, size, production, experience, fit. And what they talked about fit a lot. These DBs and linebackers are the epitome of fit, of what we want. I can clearly see an identity forming, something that I did not see at all last year.
And two guys, big nasties up front on the defense. Nigel Tate, D tackle, 6'3", 320, transfer from Boston College, and Denver Warren, 6'2", 300, from Sam Houston. I know Tate didn't play last year, and I don't want to overshadow Tate, but Denver Warren, I mean, that's another solid pickup on that defensive line, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, just one note on Tate. I view him similar to Josiah Patterson, right? Just what we were talking about, like highly recruited out of high school, didn't necessarily find his way on the field at Boston College, but there are examples over the years of guys that are right there in the middle, like run stuffing, defensive tackles, nose tackles that can come in and do their job. And I think at this level, he's someone that's going to have that opportunity coming in. He comes in, he was a teammate of Jalen Cheek. So again, he's big, he's got experience, he's been in a Power 4 program for several years. So let's see what he's able to do with that opportunity. On Denver Warren, I think Denver Warren was publicly announced before Amari Morrison, and when it happened, I was thinking like, okay, well, this is the highlight. Like, this is like the gem, like, because he was on a very good Sam Houston State team, and he had offers from Memphis, we'll throw out that name again, North Texas, UNLV, who it seemed like UAB was going head-to-head with for defensive line guys throughout the cycle, WKU. You hear some of those programs, and those are winning good G5 programs. So he was targeted, and UAB defensive staff had to go out and compete and win against some quality programs. The stats, they'll be on the screen here as well: 25 tackles and 13 games played. He's had multiple stops. He was at Independence, at New Mexico State, Bowling Green. So he's moved around a little bit. But I think that he's going to come in right away and have an opportunity to be a starting caliber player for this UAB defense. And I am thrilled at, defensive line coach to be named in the future. I'm thrilled at what they were able to do at this position of need.
Yeah, I am too. You look at Warren, you look at Morrison, you look at these guys, the Jermichael Rogers, and all of a sudden, I know I talked about him being the ceiling raiser, but then you got Israel Odin-Ajor, you got Waller, you got all these type of guys, E1 Smalls coming back who are very. I'm glad E1 Smalls. That's probably one of the. He's the sneaky guy I wanted to come back on that defensive line. Like I think he dealt with injuries, but we saw him his freshman year. It was like this dude looked like he's the strongest dude on the field. He was holding up against Georgia, right? And so it's like we're bringing all of these guys back again. Denver Warren, and I believe a guy like Nigel Tate because I feel like he'll have a job. First, second down, stop the run, big fella. Good job. Come on off the field. You did your job, right? You need guys like that. Denver Warren is an every down guy. Again, played at a good Sam Houston school, was really sought after, very well put together. If you see him, he is. Forget a ceiling again. He is an extreme floor raiser. Consistency. He put up those stats at defensive tackle. It's different at defensive tackle. You're in a phone booth every play. You're not meant to put up stats at that position. He was able to put up good stats at defensive tackle. To me, he may be the gem of the class. I think you can argue over because I think Josh Baca. You can go so many different guys, but what I see is fit. I see consistency. I think we're going to have consistency now at defensive line. I hope all of this stuff has to be proved on the field. We're not trying to hype it up. We did that last year. We got beat to sleep, right? So whatever. Everything has to be proved. What I am happy is these 21 guys here. They should be on campus. The school announced them, assuming these guys are here. So if we got those guys, I'm very happy because we saw the difference that it makes, right? So just in regards to the whole roster, I see consistency on the defensive line. I see the ability of not being, we have a chance to not get pushed around up front. We have versatile linebackers that can run, hit, and be in the right spots and actually just get there. We totally revamped our secondary. They'll have time with CJ Cox to get everything together to get their consistency going. They're way longer now than they were last year. It's very long, very experienced. These guys are hungry. They want a future in this game, right? So I think what we did was raise our IQ, especially defensively. We raised our IQ. We raised our consistency. And we have an identity. Well, we're trying to have an identity. It has to be proven on the field.
We see what they're going for, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And you see what Steve Russ wants. And then offensively, we see that we're going to go all in on Kitna. Last year was a year that he played that he hadn't played football in forever. That was him knocking off the rust. So if you believe in we saw the flashes. Sometimes he looked like the best quarterback in conference. Some of the throws, some of the plays he make, I'm like, woo. Then he'll do something. You'll be like, he'll make you pull your hair out. Was that a result of the rust of him not playing football? That's going to be the question that he's going to answer. Now you're going to come in as the guy. And you have good weapons. Where we were like, man, we lost all our receivers. No. We saw Corey Milliner legit look like our number one receiver last year with Amari Thomas and Cam Shanks. Those last 3 or so games, he looked like our best guy. So now you bring back and you're able to keep a guy like B.J. Hawkins. You're able to bring in the A.J. Johnsons and the Evan McCrae's, all these guys. All of a sudden, you have weapons. You brought in Elijah Lags and Antonio Ferguson's, the Gabriel Kleins, who was a high school guy. You keep a J.C. Sylvie. All of a sudden, you got some pieces on offense that you can do some things with. You keep a J.D. Morgan. You keep a Zaire Flournoy, who started at guards. I hope we got Harrison Barker playing receiver. We got Devi Martinez, I think is an offensive line guy that they didn't announce. He came from JUCO. Hopefully he's still coming. He played right tackle. I looked at his highlights. He's a good guy I'm excited about. Hopefully they can bring him in still. And you got the Barry Walkers and the Jaden Liggins on the offensive line that redshirted. Barry Walker was one of the highest ever recruits that UAB was able to get. Remember that. These guys are going to be expected to produce the K. Martins of the world. So I think we got Jordan Hall who started games at tackle. So it's not like we're left barren without experience. We have size, experience, and we have pieces. Javon Carter, Solomon Beebe, Isaiah Jacobs, all of these guys, like you can see some depth and you see the pieces and you say, well, if we can fit it together and not make dumb mistakes, actually compete play after play, don't call single high safety against Navy before, like, right? Like, you bring in these experienced coaches, all of a sudden we have something, and it's not to get anybody all excited and say, hey, we're going to win this many games. What I see is an opportunity, and I am willing to give this staff a chance, seeing what they cooked up. I'm willing to say, okay, I'm coming in this thing. We're going to dump that for now. Whatever happened in the past, 3-9, whatever the record, I don't care. Let's dump it. Let's go into this year refreshed, and let's give these players, you got the coaches, but let's give these players a chance to really feel the love. It's deeper than just agendas and what we want to happen. I don't care if you want to deal for fire or not. I don't really listen. We're here now. We have quality players. Can we appreciate these players, and can we give this a real chance? It's like if you had a rocky relationship and it's like, we're going to go back into this thing, we're getting back to the fundamentals. I'm really going to give this a shot. Are you going to really give it a shot, or are you just going to complain again about the past? Let's give it a shot, and then if it suck again, now you can bring up the past and say, okay, nah, fire him. We tried it. Cool. I'm pretty sure they'll agree to that. They're not slow. I think they know that this is their. If we go 3-9 again, they're out of here. Let's just say that. Yeah, he's out of here. I don't know what happened to the athletic director, but all I'm saying is we cross those bridges if we get to them. Don't worry about that bridge. We're here now. Be happy about the Denver Warrens and the Maury Morrisons we have now. Support them. Stop complaining and whining, and let's get to trying to win some games, man.
Dang, well said. Hey, bowl game or bust, baby. Hey, Jimmy, you got any parting shots?
Don't start. Don't start with all of this.
Hey, let me get on Jux. Let me get on Jux.
I think it's time to take this Magic City over. Let's go paint our walls and our house green. Paint the city green. Let's go.
Just blaze.